Good afternoon. Welcome back. Let me rather say I'm back today. And yeah, I took a little bit of a breather yesterday. I had to get some stuff out of the way and I didn't have anybody that was scheduled. So yeah, I played around in the studio yesterday with one or two things, which I'll post on my Facebook in a little bit. Or when this chat is done. Today I'm speaking to a commercial photographer from Cape Town, a guy by the name of Warren Baynes. And I haven't met Warren yet, but I know Warren through a very good friend of mine, Dan Edwards, who's been on before in the BTS South Africa chat. And Warren is a commercial photographer based in Cape Town, and he has shot some awesome campaigns. His agency represented, so I'm going to ask him some questions about that. And then also he's done some very interesting personal projects that I think we can chat on. There's some really cool stuff in there, and stuff that's quite inspirational for people that are stuck at home now. So have a listen and start planning these things for when we get out. So yeah. Otherwise, how's everybody been? This side, I'm curious to see what the president's going to say tonight, and then maybe we're out next week, maybe we're not. And if we're out, it's going to be a very slow process to get back into the swing of things. So yeah, it's a tough one, very tough out there. And everybody that I've spoken to, well, I've bumped into, and I've had to run to the shops quickly, everybody is stressing big time. So, right, let's get Warren to come in here. Pesky fly. Okay, just hold 1 second, guys. Okay, Warren's going to be on in a second. There we go. Right, Matt. Hello.
There we go.
Yes, how's it?
Sorted.
Good, good.
How's it going?
All right, and you, man?
Well, good. Thanks for thanks for the invite to come on the show.
And it was a short notice one, but here we are.
It's all right. I haven't got much to do nowadays, so it's a nice way to fill up the afternoon.
Yeah, most people don't have much to do in any way, so yeah. Hopefully they're listening to the nonsense we're going to talk now.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully dispel some sort of useful information.
Yeah, no, I think there's a lot, and there's quite a bit of stuff that old Daddy Boy has mentioned to me that I want to chat to you about, and then also some of the other things that you might have going on.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think let's start off. You are agency represented.
Yeah.
Yes.
I currently am with Bird on a Wire, creative manager. Yeah.
So I think let's chat about the process, because I know to get in with an agency is the chance of finding hen's teeth is much bigger these days, because everybody's knocking down the doors of the big agencies for work. So I think let's chat about if you're keen to do that.
Okay, absolutely. I guess it all started. I started in the stills as a production assistant in the stills sort of commercial stills industry, freelancing for production companies. So I actually stepped in at the, let's say, the entry level of commercial photo shoots about 6 years ago, and that exposed me to a lot of international photographers. I've never assisted any photographers in South Africa. I've never spent time sort of in any studios. My experience was very hands-on, as far as like literally hands-on as a production assistant for my first year, and then from the second year I started PMing, and I did that for a good like 4 or 6 seasons. But what it did is it gave me an opportunity to look at a lot of international photographers, mostly British, but a few American and European. And it sort of gave me a taste of what the commercial world is like over there, sort of how people are shooting here, styles that I liked, ways of working that resonated with me. And the whole time I was taking winters off and I was going to travel. So in about 2013, I started doing these long trips overseas, and I would just shoot what I guess I would categorize as street photography. But I was just out every day photographing in the streets, and that sort of happened for a couple of winters, and I worked through the seasons. And then in between that, I'd done little bits and pieces with companies. So if I knew someone with a brand, like a bikini brand or a beachwear brand, like I would do shots for them. And slowly I built up this body of images, and I ended up putting that together on a website, sort of writing a sales pitch. And then I hit up everyone in South Africa. I had every photographic agency that I could think of, that I could find online, and they all turned me down. And I guess that's, coming from the business background or the entrepreneurial background that I come from, it wasn't unfamiliar to me. The process wasn't unfamiliar. The being turned away, I didn't take it personal. I just kind of put it out there, and then I carried on just shooting. And Bird and Hawaii actually phoned me up a few months later, and they were like, look, we're changing the way that we're doing things. We'd be interested in representing you. And that started our relationship.
Okay, that's cool. But did you physically go knock on these guys' doors? Did you email them? Did you phone them? Because I know that they probably get 10,000 emails a day about potential photographers and videographers asking to be signed. So yeah. What do you think made you stand out to them?
So just a little bit of background. Up until last year, I was the owner of a business that did recycling for events. So we worked on events like the Absa Cape Epic, K-Day, like a few of the big events here in Cape Town. And what that gave me a chance to do is to sharpen my sales skills. Now, I hate cold calling. I hate, that awkwardness, but it was a skill that you, as an entrepreneur, you have, especially as a start-off business, you have to develop. You have to understand that, you might have incredible work, but it isn't about you. There's the person that you're trying to sell to that has their own sort of prerogative and their own needs. So you need to understand that you're presenting to them, and how you present to them is, straight away, that's going to make an impact. So I develop a short firstly, I list all the companies that I could find in South Africa. It's just internet, Google, took all the details, website, contact, all that sort of stuff. And then I looked at each agency and I kind of ranked them as my sort of preference, highest preference to the lowest preference, if that makes sense. So I just looked at the agency. I said, look, I like the sort of photographers that you represent. I like, you saw your brand. And I rated them in that way. And then I started from the bottom so that I could make the mistakes early on with companies that I knew I didn't necessarily wanted, they weren't my sort of first choices when it came to representation. And I just worked my way up the list. And it's a straightforward process. It's a phone call. It's a short sales pitch, and then a direct email straight after that. So my process often went phone call, conversation, email address, send, and then follow up 10 days later.
And how open are these guys to getting phone calls?
I think as any business owner or any company, you're always receiving phone calls, but one just has to make sure that they present in, in the correct manner. You don't want to go in there and say, look, I'm incredible. You must do that. You must do that. It's a basic conversation. It's like, hey, this is who I am. This is where I'm from. If you've got the time, I'd love to send you a link to make sure you've got all of those things in line though. Like you can't phone someone and ask them for their email address and then still have to like build your website and get your body of work. It takes a lot of hours before you even start those phone calls to make sure you've got a presentation that is concise and that can be run through really quickly. Because like you say, these agencies might be getting hundreds of calls a week or even emails a week with people trying to pitch their work. And if you've got a complex website that takes a lot of clicks to figure out who you are, what you are as a photographer or director, it's not going to be good for an agency. Whereas if you can deliver your message in 60 seconds, I think owners of companies and art directors really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, that makes sense because they're busy. Well, probably not so busy right now because I know the whole industry got tanked at the end of Feb, like quick. So
yeah, it was like the shutters just came down on everyone, but this winter time is usually a time for reconciliation. There's a lot of getting all the images from the different campaign shoots from the different photographers. So as an agency, they're collecting campaigns that were photographed during season, compiling that, putting that up on their website, connecting with European agencies and European companies again. So work doesn't just stop, I don't think everyone just like put their computers down and we're like, okay, cool. Well, now we got a, undecidable holiday. As far as I know, everyone's still quite busy with putting their work together and no one's treating this like the end. If anything, I think people are gearing up to look at new and creative ways of delivering.
But I think now would be a good chance for people that deem themselves good enough to get that portfolio ready, to get their website ready, to get all the things done so that they can pitch these guys. Well, if they've got openings, but like you said, you throw stone in the pond or stone in the bush and see who jumped out at the end. And it's worthwhile getting that stuff done now while they're not concentrating on jobs being done, getting everything organized for jobs, for upcoming jobs and all that.
Absolutely. If there was a time to be really putting energy into putting a presentation together, to making sure the website's really tight with the best images that you have, and not the images that resonate with you on a personal level. The tendency is as photographers is to look at work from a very subjective point of view, and you go, oh well, it took me so much time to get this particular image, or it took this amount of money to get this particular image. It really is about objectifying your work and even getting outside opinions. I found that has been very helpful over the years. Whenever I've felt that I've sort of come to a new stage in my body of work, or with a body of work, or looking to present perhaps to new art directors, then I'll often seek outside advice, friends that I have in the industry, art directors whose opinion I appreciate. I often reach out and do like a sort of soft presentation where I can get feedback, where people can say, okay, well, perhaps try this or look at that. And I take all critique. I don't take it personally.
Yeah, well, but that also depends on where it's coming from. If the critique is coming from the top art director in Cape Town at the moment, then shit, I need to listen to what this dude is saying and work on that. But if it's coming from Tani Sunny that's on a Facebook group giving you critique that can't do what you do, then brush it off and carry on and note it and rather look for somebody else.
Absolutely. I think if someone's going into the professional realm, let's say the commercial realm, or you're going to turn this hobby that you have or this interest that you have into a commercially viable sort of life choice, you need to turn to people. It's okay to I think it's great to share your work online. It's a great way for you to get comfortable with the idea of sharing your work. As creatives, we do have a tendency to kind of huddle onto work and maybe it's too precious, or maybe you're too concerned, and there's always like that next project before you put something out. And you've just got to take those risks. You got to get to a point where you're just publishing stuff so that you get comfortable with that feeling. But if you are moving into the creative, into the sort of professional commercial realm, you do want to try and seek opinions from that sphere. It's great to have a bunch of people like your photograph and throw nice comments, but as much as they're appreciated, I often look for the most critical opinions, especially ones who can offer reason behind why they make a choice, because then I have an opportunity to look at it from their point of view and go, okay, well, what you say makes sense.
Yeah, I've got friends who own a little photography group on Facebook, and it's predominantly Afrikaans one called the Help Mekaar Fotografie, and it's basically a group of people. There's a couple of people in there that shoots for weddings and families and all those kind of things. But they've got like a bi-weekly theme that they do, and then people put pictures up, and then they choose the top 10 or 15, and they ask me to come in and choose the best 3 from them. And I've had people and they post pictures there that's really, really not good. And then I would give an honest opinion about it. I've been around a little bit, and I've done quite a few things to be able to give that kind of critique. And then they say, but you're so rude, and why? I said, I'm not rude, I'm being honest. Nobody's going to tell you, oh, that's so pretty, but you need to fix this, because then it's not so pretty. You need to say it like this and learn from that, and don't. Yes, it's a knock on the chin, and it's not nice, but it's the best way to learn.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between someone who's picked it up and perhaps just a pastime hobbyist, and someone who takes it as, dare I say, an art form or a tool of expression, or even a commercial thing. I think if you want to move forward, you've got to look for those. You've got to look for those holes in your ability and tighten them up, and getting opinions from people who are established, who have more experience. It pays dividends. Over the long time, if you can take that critique and look at your work, and perhaps you go and try to reshoot a concept, perhaps you take the notes and you develop something new. That's part of growth. That's how you develop a skill, is by finding the weakest point and tightening that up. And growth doesn't come from having yes people around you, or having yes people to critique your work or look at your work.
Or you must do something completely out of your comfort zone, something that you've never done before. For instance, a guy that's shooting fashion every single day, give him a long lens and say, right, let's go birds, or let's go figure out how to shoot a wine bottle so it looks professional. Those kind of things. I think people should step out of their comfort zones more often to teach themselves new skills as well.
Yeah, it's also nice to have, not just solely focused on one particular theme. I found my style has changed. I became interested in street photography when I was traveling, but I've always had an interest in the ocean. As you get that, so that's what I'm a print from Australia, and it's that kind of being in the shooting water photography that is nice and challenging, and it often develops new ideas, or I get to experiment. I get to have fun with it, and sometimes out of that, like you say, when you get out of your comfort zone, perhaps you're going to photograph, for me, a particular wave or a particular surfer. There's a challenge there, and it's also fun. So you come out with it with fresh perspective, and you keep it fresh. As for someone building their portfolio in the commercial realm, you're always shooting these tests, and I just kind of find I get not fatigued, just creatively I'd started to struggle a bit.
Okay, with test shoots. What are you struggling with? Test shoots.
Test shoots, yeah. So non-commercial photography shoots that I produce, or I get assistance, I get help to produce a shoot that has no commercial value but has all the elements of a commercial value. Okay.
Do you get bored? Do you like doing that kind of stuff? Sorry,
yeah.
You said that you get bored with it. Sorry, we're talking over each other. No worries. Okay, right. So you have put together some big shoots for yourself, build your portfolio.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Correct. That's fine. And you do that because you know that you need something in your portfolio particularly, and that you want to build on and show to your prospective clients, or is it completely something creative that you've got in your head?
Test shoots are there for me to experiment with ideas. So to experiment with a particular mood, a particular group of people, a particular product. Maybe I'll insert a product in a way that could be used, someone could see that, I understand how to photograph a particular product to make it look good in a certain scenario. But to be honest, most of the art directors who, most of the jobs I get chosen for, my traveling work gets referenced more than anything else.
Okay. So would you be all that kind of stuff in the future to better that, or do you still want to put up more test shoots for your portfolio?
So last winter I spent a lot of time on test shoots. That's actually where I got Dan and Ryan together, and they were doing some behind the scene stuff, and that sort of relationship started there, which was really cool. And that's what I like about test shoots, is I get to build a community, so that at some point when a commercial client comes through and they say, we need this, that, the other, we've got the capacity, within this community that I work with, we've got the hairstylist, we've got the hair and makeup, the styling, props master, all those sort of things. So it's about building community, it's about testing concepts, and about presenting new work each season, so that people see that art directors and clients overseas can see that I've been busy. However, that I focus solely on sort of test concepts that had no end purpose. They were just for my book, they were for the model's book, and for the stylist book. This winter, I'm taking a bit of a new approach, where I'm collaborating with art directors to deliver complete campaigns. But these are for companies or NGOs that, we kind of like what they're doing, and we then go and pitch this idea of, hey, look, we'll do this entire thing for you for free. We'll like an opportunity to pitch and deliver for you.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool. That makes sense. And also the thing with those kind of test shoots is that you can be completely creative as much as you want. There's no brief hanging on your neck saying that this is what you must shoot with. That's what you must shoot. The model is not allowed to do this, or you're not allowed to do. It's completely your creativity. And I think with like what you're saying, what you're going to be doing with the NGOs now as well, even though it's a professional team coming in, you guys can actually do what you want for them and
So
get the best stuff.
that is the premise. We're still trying, we obviously want to work within the guidelines of the NGO, make sure that it fits their brand, make sure that it doesn't in any way negatively affect their brand. But the pitch that we have put together is very much along the lines of how I photograph anyway. It's based on real people, it's based on natural light, and just making very classic, not classic, but quite strong portraiture, street portraiture, which is quite exciting.
Yeah, well, those kind of things are always exciting, especially if you're working with somebody that's not used to being in front of a camera. Okay.
I find the reactions can be very organic, and the kind of expressions that you get once you find that little sweet spot it's very rewarding.
Yes. Now, the one of the projects I saw on your website and that Dan has also told me about is the where you went into the prisons to photograph the boxes.
Yes.
All right. So tell me about that, because I think that's a very intimidating project, because a lot of these guys you're working with are gangsters and all these. So it's an intimidating person you're working with. So how did you approach those guys to work with you and get the best from them?
So just a heads up, getting into the prison was a 12-month period. It was a 12-month process of, I'm just trying to think how I met someone who knew about the prison initiative, and they put me in touch with the head of the sports development department. I spoke to him. I went to go to the prison. I saw what the boxers were doing. And that kickstarted the whole process of research and putting a proposal together, which then went through the whole process of approval, which was in the end about a 12-month process. But a project like that takes a lot of trust. And it took months of sometimes just going to the prison and maybe making 1 or 2 photographs, sometimes none, just to be at the training sessions, just for the guys to sort of get comfortable with me, to build some relationships, to understand some stories, and to really recognize who in the program the boxing was actually helping. Okay.
And how was that whole process? I think that must be an eye-opening thing to witness and to work with these kind of people that's like hardcore prisoners.
Yeah, it's had such a positive effect on my life, in that it put a lot of my own struggles into perspective. And by struggles, I mean, the things that I at some point deemed troublesome, things in my life that were difficult, I would assume are difficult or troubling. It really took it and put it all into perspective. It changed, the way I became healthier. I became more focused. It also gave me a really interesting perspective into South Africa, or Cape Town's history, and the history of the numbers gang. So when I was doing the project, I was reading a lot of books that have been written on the numbers, and John Steinberg actually has a book called The Numbers that has a very detailed history of where the number gang stems from. So that was really interesting, and also look into why gangs actually exist in society. What purpose do they serve in these communities? And while their activities are illegal and illicit, and innocent people get caught in the crossfire, what they do for a lot of young men is offer them a place in community, because a lot of the young men in prison grow up without fathers or grow up with abusive fathers in communities that don't offer a lot of opportunity. And the only sort of positive, or the only male role models they have are these gangsters.
Okay. And is there any one of those guys that you really connected with on a deeper level than just having him as a subject to photograph?
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually one boxer who's fighting for an SA title. He would have fought for an SA title on the 18th of April. His name is Abdulaziz. Okay. And from the moment as I was spending more time there, I recognized that he was one of the most motivated youngsters that were in the program, constantly driving the team through training sessions, always there on time, and always very motivated. So we built up a bit of a relationship, and he doesn't fit the typical gangster persona. You expect hard looking faces with tattoos, and there's quite a stigma around, gangsters, and he's just the polar opposite. He's a really good looking kid, really gentle in his demeanor, very, just a really nice kid. And we started hanging around a lot. He also grew up in Brooklyn, which at the time I was living in Milnerton. So we were like suburban neighbors. And it was just interesting to me how that short, the 5Ks between where he lived and where I lived, was such different worlds.
Sure. And is he still in prison? Is he gone out?
No, he got released a couple of years ago. So there's him, there's Abdul, there's a gent I met called Linton. I actually spent time working with Linton. He had been released from prison and was he was trying to find his feet on the outside world, and he was living in Belhar at the time. And I spent quite a bit of time with him. I got to photograph him and his newborn child when his kid was a couple months old, and we've kept in touch to this day, and his kid's now 2 or 3 years old. And a lot of the stories I hear from the offenders is that they come out and they go back into crime, and Linton and Abdul have been the two boxers that have come out that have not gone back into gangsterism or to crime. And those two are sort of the shining hope of what is possible for any individual. Linton's driving force was that he had this new child, and that was the reason he was going to keep straight.
Okay, so what are they doing now? What have they got jobs or?
So Linton he refurbishes old shipping containers into usable offices and living spaces. So last time I saw him at the workspace, which was about a year or so ago, he was working on a small set of containers for New Zealand. And these are skills that he developed outside of prison, a job that he found by himself. And he's traveled with the company through South Africa. He's living like an incredible life. He's married, happy with a kid, and he still trains boxing.
That's fantastic. It's awesome. It's so awesome to hear that. And Abdul, what is he doing?
He's a professional boxer. He trains out of Bryce's gym in the southern suburbs, and he's a full-time boxer. Okay.
And okay, on that same topic of the personal, because this was a personal for you, am I correct?
Yeah.
Okay, the whole thing. So what was the outcome from that? So okay, let me rephrase a little bit. Why did you particularly, okay, you said that you had a connection with the lead on the boxes in the gym, but what triggered you to say, all right, this could be an awesome project for myself?
I think offering a different perspective on prison was what first resonated with me. Going into the space that is in the media, it's been portrayed as, everyone's seen the Ross Kemp documentaries and all the pictures from from the prisons in South Africa, and the overcrowding, the gangsterism, and this offered a ray of hope, sort of in an alternative perspective to what was going on in correctional services. Now, I'm not saying that the system's perfect, but it's offering some of these criminals, or I hate saying criminals, offenders, an alternative. They're getting something that I think they're learning a skill that is really good for personal growth. There's something about boxing. Often great boxers come from troubled backgrounds, and I think it takes those troubled backgrounds to really develop heart, to be able to be knocked around and still want to and carry on fighting. It's that fighter spirits that these sort of troubled kids have. So it really fits well in the sort of correctional service space, because you have all this male tension in the cells and in the corridors, and no outlets. Some of these guys are only allowed out a few hours in the day, and they choose to spend their time boxing. So it's really an opportunity to channel that frustration, to channel that anger, and have a place to work out and sort of release all of that testosterone. So they go back and face the time with a bit of a clearer head. Okay.
And once you've had the project finished, you did an exhibition and a book on it as well. What if I'll link? Is the book still available? Can people still get the book?
The book is available, yeah. Okay. I don't think I need to open up how I would sort of send it out again. It's been a while since I've done that, but yeah, people are welcome to contact me, and I can make a plan to get it out. But it got to a point where I just had so much work, so many images, that I just felt that it needed to be shared, and it was a story I felt that needed to get out. I didn't get the kind of, it's the type of project that could carry on for years. You can keep exploring different elements, different characters, but it kind of got to a point where I felt, okay, this has reached its pinnacle, or this has reached a good spot now. Let's try get it out. And I put it together. A couple of online magazines published it. I think the Sunday August or the Sunday Times had a big spread on it, had a two or 3 page spread on it. And then I ended up having an exhibition in Franschhoek, and I had the book published as well. Okay. And what was the feedback you got from the exhibition after you did that? Because I know that's exhibiting your photos is also a very personal thing, but it must also resonate with the people that comes to see it. So how was that experience? I thoroughly enjoyed going through the process of editing images down, choosing the final selects, going through the printing process, framing. There's something very gratifying about the whole process. And then seeing it hung up on the wall is something quite special too. I'd love to do another show at some point. I just haven't quite found the right subject. But the show and the book were kind of just a way of wrapping it all up. I ended up sharing the profits with any boxes that pieces were sold of. So boxes that were featured in the image, I ended up splitting the profits with them, because I wasn't there to make money for it, Okay, that's awesome. And so the long and short thing is, if somebody's got a project that they feel like doing, they should just go and do it, because otherwise somebody else is just going to take up your idea and go do what you do. So do your research. Make sure the subject matter is interesting to a lot of people. I think because it was prison, I think the body of work has a intrinsic element of interest to it, because it's a hard, but it's also a hard sell. It's there were very confrontational pieces, and I think for some South Africans that might be hard to, some collectors that might be hard to digest. But yeah, it's going to take longer than, prepared to put a good few years into the project. Be prepared. You're going to come up to challenges always, whether it's, with prison, for me, it was getting access to certain places and the different tiers of administration. But that was part of the process of working in correctional services. There's a lot of red tape and you need to jump to clear it. But it's going to cost more than you expect. It's going to take longer than you expect. And you might not sell stuff. And you've got to, when you're starting any project, it's got to be driven by, it's got to be self-motivated. It can't be financially motivated.
Yeah, no, with anything personal, you can't do it for the money. If there's money in it, if the money will, you can't attempt something like that and hope that somebody would spend a couple of $100,000 on buying your prints afterwards. It's not a given. And even if you do expect that, you must make sure that the pictures you do put out is worth that kind of money that people would spend on it.
Yeah, and printing's a whole new process in itself. It's a whole other art form. It's
expensive. To do proper, really good art prints is very expensive.
Yeah. But as a photographer, there is a feeling of having a big A0 print on the wall, and you can just kind of stand there and then having other people look at it and appreciate it. There's something beautiful to that.
It's different. The emotion is different. A print on a wall and what it is looking on a screen, like on a phone or on a laptop or something like that. It's just, you can't explain that emotion from that picture versus an online one.
Yeah, and that's what I found with the book and the exhibition, is that people in that space, people are forced to stop and pay attention. So when you're standing underneath the print, you're standing there and being fully present and looking at it, or you're paging through a physical book, you're going through the pages, and it really demands attention. And I think that's where photography is great, is it can take them into these little journeys, whether it's on a book or on a wall.
Yes. So coming from that kind of personal project where you are so deeply involved in it with all the emotions and everything, and then going out to go shoot a campaign for a clothing brand, for instance, that you've got absolutely no emotional connection with, apart from a paycheck at the end of the month. How do you feel about those kind of things? Obviously, you do it because you love the art of photography, and also being paid for it. But, yeah, I think a lot of people, if I could only shoot for myself, then I would shoot landscapes and be out in the veld the whole day, but that won't pay the bills.
And I think that's something you've got to accept from early on. You've got to make that decision to say, okay, some jobs pay the bills, some jobs pay the bills and are super fun, and then some things you do are for yourself. And if you can clearly differentiate between those elements of your own work, I don't think there's a need to get caught up. I did a campaign for a healing care, like a gel, a wound care. And, I was getting paid to hang off the side of a cliff and photograph a mountain climber. And it's, it was everything I love about photography. It was being outside. It was, collaborating with real people who have the capacity to climb these sheer walls, and I was making photographs, and I was collaborating with an awesome creative team who were also having a real good time. And that side of the commercial photography, although perhaps, I don't have necessarily an intense connection with the image, in that it's not, let's say, a story, not part of a story. It still is the process of making the photograph, and the people relationships you have doing it are what I enjoy.
Yeah, and a job is always fun. You can't take that away from it. Even when they're few and far between, but you get those ones where you want to pack away your camera gear at 10 o'clock in the evening and join the party, because it's just such an awesome vibe, and you get that with all sorts. I do a lot of cultural sector, and there's few times that I've walked away from working on a farmer's, like if it's fruit farmers, especially in harvest season, there's hardly ever you will walk away from there going home without a box of grapes or apples or whatever they're busy with. They just want, and those are minor things, not why I do the job, but you will always get something back from them just for being there.
And that is part of what I love about photography is, you know, as a person with social interests, I like working with people. It's fun collaborating, and especially when you get that rapport going, you know, it does feel a lot more than just a job, because, you know, you might make a connection or walk away with some grapes, or just everyone's contribution helps and makes this incredible photograph that, you know, everyone's stoked on.
And okay, on another topic, what camera gear do you shoot with?
So I'm not a very techie type of photographer. Like, you know, I understand how to operate a camera, but I don't know specs and all that sort of stuff. But at the moment, I shoot on a Canon 5D Mark IV. My backup camera is a 5D Mark III, which I'll shoot more like the sort of water photography stuff or action stuff. Yeah. And then I've got a range of prime lenses and a couple of zoom lenses.
Okay, so you're a Canon shooter, invested in
Canon. Yeah,
sorry. Would you move brand by any chance, or look at something else, or are you still happy with what Canon is giving you?
I bought a Fuji, one of the XT, I think the XT1, for the prison when I was working in correctional services, because I found it's sort of, because it was so small, it was a little bit more discreet, and I enjoyed that about the Fuji, but I wasn't 100% sold on it. I like putting like an extra battery pack on the bottom of my camera so that it looks and feels bulkier. It feels like I'm working with a tank. Yeah. I just that's my comfort. You know, even lugging those things around, I walk around with a shoulder strap all day, and the camera's in there, and I'm just comfortable with that.
Okay, that's cool. That's cool. And I see a lot of the stuff you shoot on your site. There's a lot of natural light things. You don't shoot with a lot of studio lights on your shoots.
No, most of my 99.9% of my things. I mean, commercially, I'll use a bounce, a scrim, as a bit of fill to scrim things off. But yeah, most of my stuff's all naturally lit.
Yeah, that's it. It just goes to show it's not all about, yes, light in particular is very important and how you use it, but you don't have to have 200,000 rands worth of broncolor lighting to be a commercial photographer.
No.
Kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's different types of commercial photographers. You know, there are high-end fashion studio photographers, there are product, and all of those things, all of those photographic styles require different elements. Mine, I'm heavily focused on location and emotion and action. I love when things are happening. I love when, you know, whether it's the campaign I was talking about, whether it was someone climbing a wall or someone skateboarding or someone riding a mountain bike, you know, you don't really have the space to set up these big lighting systems. It's very much off the go.
Yeah, that's awesome. I also like shooting with natural light. I can work with off-camera flash if I want, but it's few and far between. It's because and I shoot run and gun. It's 99% of the times I'm by myself. So to have a light stand and a reflector and all these kind of things to work around with, it's just very cumbersome for me. So I go in, I get the shots that I need or I feel is good enough, and then I carry. I don't like to lug around all things. This makes it easier for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think last winter I did one studio test, and then I experimented on a couple of shoots with off-camera flash. There's a series actually that was photographed at some salt pans on the West Coast, and we set up a flash setup, single light flash setup, and just didn't end up using it. The location was just so prime with these sort of massive white sand mountains that the natural bounce was just incredible.
Yes.
And I just ended up, I tried a bit of light here and there, but it's understanding light as a process. And I think if you've got a really good location and you're good at shooting a particular way, stick with that, and then maybe experiment with light at home or something that's where you've got time to play around.
Yeah, and also I think most photographers forget about the natural bounce that's happening around you, or the natural lighting that you can use to advantage. Like where I'm sitting at the moment, I've got a window in front of me, so that's why I've got even lighting over me. I'm not sitting in my office. My walls are painted black. It's just not good. But then simple things like if you're shooting outside and there's a white house it doesn't even have to be completely white. It can just be a very light color. It will create a very lovely bounce coming off it with the light. So simple things like that you pick up with experience.
And cities are great for that, where as the sun comes through its morning or afternoon arc, it starts sending light back into the shadows, so you can actually play with the light spots like that, which is fun. It's also sometimes about the light you take away, not necessarily the light that you add. So if I'm shooting, I'll often have a black cloth that we can hang up and just rather take some light away if you want to create a more dramatic shadow.
Yes. And also what's nice about these kind of shoots that you do is you particularly normally after one image or maybe 3 or 4, that's going to be the final campaign. It's not, you don't have to deliver a series of 500 images for like a wedding or family shoot, anything like that. You need one, so you can play around with different setups to get everything perfect for that one particular shot.
There is some pre-production that goes into preparing for a shoot like that, and it often comes with understanding what the client and the art director wants. So if they're really set on a very naturally lit scene, you're not going to arrive with this huge lighting setup and try and impose your wishes on it or use it as a chance to experiment. That's why I think tests are important, because you get to put yourself in those situations and test it out before you walk onto set. So when you walk onto set, you have a very clear idea of what's going on, and you're not, wasting anyone's time.
Or what your limitations is, or what the conditions will be able to give you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if an international shoot is scheduled for the 5th of May and it's pissing down with rain, and that's the only day that you can shoot, you need to make another plan to make it look like it's. So then your experience with lighting can come in again. So yeah, but that's all experience that teaches.
So yeah, I was shooting on the back of a TV commercial, I think in October or November last year, and they had a pool scene where they obviously wanted it to look like this beautiful warm European summer, and it just rained like torrential. So all the lights had to get covered up. They were setting up lights for a TV commercial, and then they'd cover it all up, and in the meantime you're trying to get your stills as well, and it made it very challenging. And shooting on the back of a TV commercial can be very challenging, and that's the way things are going now. Budgets are, up until lockdown or all of this happened, budgets were getting tighter, so people are condensing shoots and putting TV commercial with still campaigns.
Yes.
So you're finding these hybrid shoots where the relationship between the photographer and the director and the TV commercial team, has to be really good, and there needs to be a mutual understanding. And more so, I'm finding that it is becoming easier for photographers to work on TV commercial sets, because everyone's starting to understand, okay, well, this is the way it is going to happen from now on. So we might as well be nice to this team.
Exactly. And the good thing about that is if the lighting looks good on video, it's probably going to look good on photos as well. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, so the lighting is normally pretty much good to for us as still shooters.
Mm. Yeah, you won't have a lot of time on a TV commercial unless they have like a designated space. You won't have a lot of time to set up necessarily a big lighting setup. So working off the TV commercial lighting setup does help a lot, and that comes with having a good relationship with the assistant director, the director, and everyone involved on that side.
Okay, so if you could shoot anything and you didn't have to worry about being paid for it, what would you go and do and shoot?
How do you mean, commercially or personally?
No, if money wasn't an object, if you didn't need to be paid for your photography to make a living, what would you photograph?
I'd probably focus on human stories and surfing. It would be divided, you know. It takes a lot from a person to do a human story. I think you invest a lot of yourself into the process. You know, there are a lot of times when I did the boxing series, you know, you spend a lot of time on the sidelines, not making pictures, driving out there. Sometimes you get turned away because communication didn't happen, or something happened in the prison that night before and the whole thing's on lockdown. Like, it takes a lot of an individual to create a body of work like that. So I would mix it up between human stories and surf photography. Probably I really want to explore more underwater photography, photograph good reefs from like good waves from under the water, collaborate with surfers, those sort of things.
And any advice that you've got for people that wants to shoot those kind of people? Just reach out to them on see who's keen to photograph and set up a date and go and shoot it. A lot of cold calling as well, I would presume.
Who's this for?
For surfers and sports people and all these kind of things.
Yeah, it helps starting out, I guess, looking at the people around you, the people that you know, if you are a surfer or a skater or a mountain climber or someone who rides mountain bikes, it's good to start with something that you know, a sport that you know, and understand, because that helps making contacts with people. It helps understanding what moves in a particular sport look good and how to compose those shots, and just start shooting. Just shoot a lot, understand what works, look for inspiration, look at what's been done already by photographers out there. Research is a big part of photography, I think. Understanding what's been done, what hasn't been done, what potentials there are, what angle you could approach your series of pictures from. All of that goes into making pictures. What lights do you want to work with, and what light is best for that particular location. And then once you're shooting, I'd say reach out. Once you feel confident enough that you have the ability, I think reaching out is a great way.
And I see you've got quite a cool number of shots on skateboarding and stuff as well. So I presume you're quite into the boarding type sports.
I like I don't know if it's fringe culture, but I like that sort of mobile culture. I like the life, the life of skaters and surfers. It's always been this.
It's almost that idyllic.
Surfing has always got that picture perfect, beautiful beaches and suntans and all that, and warm water. But there's also the other side of it, which is really interesting. The guys that are going out to the colder places, Scotland, Iceland, all of that, which also makes for very dramatic landscapes, where the surfers are incidental, not necessarily the central focus. And then skating, I've always just loved the culture of skating. I think they were very anti-establishment. It was never about the money. It was about doing something you love. So those sports really resonate with me. I was in Morocco at the beginning of the year, and I ended up photographing more skateboarding than I did surfing, because the ocean went flat and I couldn't make pictures of a flat ocean. So I started I went up to the skate park and I met a British guy from, a guy from the UK who was there, and I'd go up with him and hang out, and then I'd meet some of the local skaters, and they ended up having a sort of weekend contest, and I went there and photographed and gave some of the images to the local skate club. It's it's just a cool community. Their location, their skate park was right on top of the hill overlooking the stretch of coastline. It was just a beautiful place to even just hang out.
Yeah, no, that's and also, but you took the effort and time to go look for those places and start talking to someone. You can't just rock up there with a camera and then expect them to give you access to right in there. You need to be a nice guy as well to get the access. With your prison, you obviously get to the prison board and say, listen, my name is Warren, I can take a good photo, this is what I'm going to do. You obviously had to apply a lot of people to get the right connections.
And you need to understand that, the project isn't about you as an individual. It's not, oh, I'm going in to make these photographs. It's like, there's a story here that needs to be told, and I would like to be the one who facilitates, the making of the pictures and telling the story. So you have to, it's just about people skills and being able to communicate clearly. Running in somewhere and just making pictures can make the environment really sort of tense. So it does take time. You've got to go up, and even if you're just hanging around with your camera on your arm, it's not about making pictures. It's about saying hello, introducing yourself. People becoming comfortable with you, and then you find it's like, oh, that was a cool trick. Can you do that again? Or, surfing's kind of cool in that you could float out in the water with a water housing, and you almost instantly make friends because everyone wants their photograph taken. Because there aren't necessarily too many people making pictures from the water. But skaters don't necessarily not all surfers want their picture taken. It's about communicating clearly what you want to do, and if you can share the images with the people, that also goes a long way. Realize that some places you might go, they don't have access to good photographers all the time.
And what housing are you using for your camera?
I bought a Brothers housing. It's a local South African made water housing. Very simple, very primitive in its usability, but that's all that you need. I shoot shutter speed priority, or aperture priority, set my ISO, and usually go a stop or a stop and a half under, and autofocus, and that's me.
And your autofocus is on servo, obviously, for the guys coming closer and everything.
Yeah. I'd like to at some point invest in a more complex setup, something that I do, can control my shutter speed and my lighting or my settings, because then you get the option to play with motion blur and different elements. You can go from freezing an image to experimenting with motion blur in the process. And if you want to do that with the housing I've got, you got to go out, unscrew everything, reset everything, put it back in, and then run back into the water. So that at some point I'll get to that, but for now I'm happy with what I've got. And
video, are you playing around with?
So that's been something I've been working with. There was a reason I invested in the 5D4. Part of the reason I invested in the 4 and a gimbal. It's to start telling stories through motion picture.
Yeah,
so that's been a lot of what I've been doing during this lockdown, is focusing on understanding the different elements of, frame rates, understanding editing processes, sound mixing, color grading, and visual storytelling, how you tell a compelling visual story.
That's the whole thing with video that I have found is if you can take a good photo, you can shoot good video, because the elements are exactly the same. It's a little bit of here and there technicality that's different, but you can make it, you can create a good picture. The difficult part comes in putting the pictures together. As with the still image, it's easy. You can show it, either connects with someone or it doesn't. But with video, you need to build that story, and that's the part.
Yeah, so that's that's one of the frustrating things at the moment is, I film stuff around the house, shot some time lapses, but there's only so much you can really do in the location that you're in, so because I like working with people and I've got ideas and people lined up that I want to work with, I wanted this thing to end now so that I can start actually shooting with people.
Yeah, well, I do a lot of, Dan and myself, we do a lot of stock photos and stock videos and stuff. So that's what I did yesterday. I went to one of the places. I bought one of those coverall suits, those waterproof suits that the doctors are wearing, and I just went to the studio, farting around with stills and 1 or 2 little video clips, and so
I think now, if this lockdown period, if anyone's wanted to learn a new skill, now has been the time to do it.
Yeah, and also to experiment with this, is the lighting is very easy. It's I borrowed a friend of mine. She's a makeup artist. She's got one of these. Have you seen it?
Is it the round flash?
Yeah, she's got a ring light flash.
Like a ring. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's not a flash. It's just a light. It's a constant light.
Yeah, it's those circular mirror lights that they use for the hair and makeup. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I borrowed that thing from her because it gives a nice light, and just my studio walls are black, so I've got a white backdrop on the one side, and the walls are black, so I can have either or. And with this light being that you need to be so close, everything behind it goes darken anyway. So that's what I've been playing around with. So I want to do a couple of more. I saw a really cool video on YouTube this morning with a guy shooting really interesting stuff just in his house with a wide angle lens. I actually saw some of the stuff on Instagram after I watched the video on YouTube. And it's cool stuff like an iron. So you've got the close up of the iron with the steam coming up with the gene. There's other ones where he took the camera lens and a hairband, and he took flowers and he just stuck it in there. And then he let his girlfriend stand and makes like as if she's picking a flower. So you've got these flowers, right, and you see her hand close up. So those kind of things are all that will sell well as stock images again, and it doesn't cost you a single cent to create, and it looks cool.
Yeah. I think what you did with that pharmaceutical stuff is genius. I mean, now more than ever.
Yeah, well, it's
there's got to be a market for that for sure.
Well, that's the mask I wear when I go to the shop. So I bought the mask before in lockdown, so I had it. The suit cost $220 at one of the places, and a pair of safety goggles cost 18 Rand at the Agrimark. So I'm pretty sure I can, total cost of that and the gloves, call it $500, and I'm pretty sure I can make that up in a couple of sales that I do.
It's this, I mean, as frustrating as this lockdown has been, it's definitely opened up some new areas of creativity, whether it's, you get creative around the house, you find elements that create dynamic imagery that, cost next to nothing. And then I've seen photographers who have done photo shoots via computer screens. So they collaborate with a model and the model sets the camera up and they work towards their phone camera or their computer screen. And there's been some really interesting results.
Yeah, there's a girl I follow on Instagram. She's a ballerina. She does a lot of fun. She's a ballet model. So she travels the whole world and does all these ballet shoots in interesting locations and all that kind of stuff. And she's got a 1DX Mark II. Mm-hmm. Oh, somebody gave it to her, she bought it, or she made it, whatever. And she connects that to her laptop, so it's tethered. So she's got a 1DX Mark II with a 24-105 lens on there. Yeah. And then he Zooms or Skypes with the photographer, and he says, "Okay, right, that's the settings I want you to do." And then she pose, and he triggers it from his side with I don't know what.
Jeez. Listen, that's been really cool to see the sort of level of creativity. And coming back to, if we can shine some hope on the local market, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for photographers going into next season. If we can bridge the gap between overseas art directors and client and here using technology. At the moment, all these people come to, we have all these European brands coming over to South Africa and a lot of them bring multiple people from the agency and art directors and photographers and all these people. And we've got highly skilled everything here.
Yeah.
I think with budgets being super tight after all of this lifts, I think it's going to be a great opportunity for local photographers to start doing bigger pieces of work, and by using technology through different calling systems or what have you. I think there's a great opportunity to be able to deliver work, and that's something that I've been trying to work on now.
Yeah.
Is with this art director in the UK is trying to deliver an entire campaign using things like Zoom and different call platforms.
Yeah, well, that's exactly why I started this whole chat thing. And if you speak to Dan again, he'll probably say to you, I've been hounding him for the last 5 years, probably saying that I want a podcast. And well, here we are. It was just, I literally made 1 or 2 calls like the 3 days before this thing we got locked down. And here I am. Yesterday was the only day that I didn't speak to someone.
Yeah, that's amazing. You find that you're just connecting with so many more people.
And I've got some really cool people. I'm chatting to a guy tomorrow who you might also find interesting. It's a guy from Germany. We knew each other through the fly fishing stuff from way back when. But he's a fantastic photographer and underwater photographer as well.
All right.
Yes, these guys do amazing stuff and they go to amazing places. So I think that's going to be another interesting one as well.
Nice. Well, it's a great platform that you've created. I think it's a great opportunity as well now for people to connect to local and international photographers.
Yeah, well, that's my whole thing. I wanted to connect people. It's and I see it so many times during this time now. And I'm sure you've seen it. Is you've got all these photographers out there. They're selling workshops, they're selling presets, they're selling Photoshop actions, and nobody's got money to buy it. And it's all about me, and not about connecting, just working with other people, their stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. I think else you want to chat about or want to share that we might know, need to find or look at or whatever?
No, I'm good. I think that covered anything that I could, any sort of value that I could add to a show.
And that was cool. It was interesting. There's a lot of interesting things in there. Probably if all this ends, I'll come and join you and Dan for a beer one afternoon somewhere.
Absolutely. You let us know when you're coming through. I think the last thing I'd like to add, I don't know if many photographers think about this in the early days, is that one needs to approach it as any sort of career move as a business. You do as a photographer, your brand becomes a business. So along with photography books, you need to be reading marketing books and branding books and selling books and those things that we hate doing the most. If you can't outsource it, which for me is slips and Excel sheets, like that's just not my thing. Get someone else, pay someone else to do the things you really don't enjoy and focus on the stuff that, getting your brand out there, which includes cold calling and sales.
But I've said so many times because I work with some of the local schools here, there's always a ton of them wanting to be a photographer after school. And then they ask me, should they go study it? I said, don't waste your parents' money. You can learn photography yourself and via the internet and everything. Go do a business management course. Go learn, teach yourself. Because then you can do anything. You can be the very best surgeon in the world, but if you don't know how to work with money or run your business, then it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Understanding how to balance sheets and know when to spend money and when not to spend money and what to spend it on is important.
It's in buying gear. There's so much gear that I still want, but is it going to make money back for me? I doubt it. So you need to buy stuff that you know is going to make money back for you.
That's always the big decision that I kind of have to sit with for a while. Whenever I get a sort of spending urge, I'm like, okay, is it absolutely necessary to either the development of my skill, or is it going to make me money back? You know, am I going to be able to rent out this camera or this gear to myself for shoots coming up? Am I going to be able to, you know, am I buying this gimbal because I'm going to use it, or am I just buying it because I have an urge to spend, and I think that that's what all the cool kids use?
Yeah, and also I think what a lot of people underestimate, and I think it's going to happen a lot now when this lockdown is to do trade agreements with clients. I've done work for clients internationally, and then when it comes to payment time, I said, listen, this is what the value of the invoice is, but this is actually what I need. And that's how I got my drone. I did work for a guy in the States, and I said to him, I want this drone or this kind of package. Whatever you find the cheapest on that side, you score on it. But then he bought it for me there, and he couriered it this way, and I was happy. So I didn't lose any money, and he got what he needed.
That's smart. Yeah, I mean, isn't trade exchange the same as money exchange? Just you're finding a way to get better quality equipment,
yeah,
on a mutually beneficial sort of result.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would add to that, never give away your skills though. A person's skill has value. Don't give away your skills as a photographer for free. It's okay if you like start with friends, companies and that. So say you want to make pictures, you go, hey, look, I'll, you know, do pictures for you for free. That's cool. But you get to a certain point where, you know, perhaps a bigger company approaches you and says, oh, this will be good for your book. And, you know, those companies are just out there to try and get stuff for free. And an interesting thing I heard the other day is no one values anything they get for free. As soon as they have to pay for it, there's more value to it. They appreciate it more.
Yeah. And also on discounts, I've had people where I've given discounts to, and not because I wanted to get the work that they wanted me to do, it's because they really asked me nicely. And then I always had a lot of shit with them afterwards. There was always an issue that on the day of the shoot, there was issues, and then afterwards, and it has happened almost every single time that we have given discount to people. There was some sort of hiccup afterwards.
Yeah. I think as a career, you know, there's value to a photographer's ability. You know, one is invested in a lot of money into their gear and their time, and there's a value to that, and it shouldn't be given away or discounted. You know, there might be certain circumstances where you can say, okay, cool, but you know, don't just give it up because someone says, oh, pretty please.
Yeah, I've also seen is that, like you say, that if a brand comes to you or somebody, and it's somebody that you would really want to work with, they've got the right connections, that this images can the right kind of people that you want to see, yes, then it's a different story if you do work for them. But then it must not be that you must say to them, right, I'm doing this section for free, for instance, or if you know, like there's going to be multiple shoots. So you go, right, the first shoot, I'll do it for free to get the images for my portfolio, what I need or whatever the story. But for the next ones, there's going to be payment. And also, it's choose where you're going to work for free, before just saying there is still market in working for free for the right people. Well, that's what I've seen and found in what I've done. But you must be careful.
For sure. Absolutely. You know, just be wary of who you give your skills away to for free. You know, this art director and myself, we mutually agreed that, you know, we'd be happy to deliver on this campaign for free because it's something that we believe in, and kind of have a philosophy where I want to develop a lifestyle where I do X amount of jobs for money, and then I do a job for free. But the job for free has to be something that's environmentally or socially beneficial. You know, it either benefits an NGO or someone who really needs it.
Yes, yes. And also in that process, you get really good images for yourself. You build a relationship with an art director, with those clients. And another thing that I firmly believe in is you never know who you're going to meet. You might get on set there and do the shoot, and the guy that runs the NGO might be his wife might be the whoever from whatever company that might be paying you a shitload of money in a couple of months' time to do a concept for them. So
absolutely, because this industry is about who you know and who you can meet and who you can rub shoulders with. So yeah, and be wise in who you give services away for free, but you know, at least do your research and find out who's worth investing time into.
Yeah, awesome. Right, so Warren, I think we've gone on for about an hour and a half, an hour and 20 minutes, which has been really, really cool. Yeah, and if there's anything else you want to add, you must wait. Otherwise, we say goodbye to
I appreciate the time. I think that is all the knowledge that I have to bestow.
In such a short time.
In such a short time. Oh yeah, that's me. I'm done. But I appreciate your time. I really do. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
And I look forward to that video when this is all done.
Yeah. I'm gonna put all your social links in the description. So if people want to get hold of you, they can do that.
Cool. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Warren, thank you so much again, and have an awesome rest of the lockdown.
I will do. Hopefully we're into the last week. Let's see what Uncle Cyril has to say tonight.
Oh, well, a lot of people are saying they can keep us in lockdown as long as they open the bottle stores. They're fine.
My thinking is as long as they open the beach.
No,
they can do the bottle stores and the beach, and then I'll be good.
Imagine living in Camps Bay and there's the beach right there and you can't go to the beach.
So I hate to do this to you because I know you live in Worcester, but the beach is across the road from me. So I live in Bloberg.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm one road back from the beach, and there's a block in front of us, but you can see the ocean through the block. And as a surfer, I've been watching our autumn swell come and go since the 7th of April.
Oh.
And it's shocking that I know when it all started.
Oh my word. Right.
So yeah, I'm hoping Uncle Cyril lets us out.
Cool. Chat soon. Right.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Have a good one. Keep safe. Cheers.
Bye.